All right, if you're a real estate agent that has been wondering, what do I need to do to get started on YouTube, and what are some of the results that other people are seeing? This is the video for you. I got Noah Escobar with me today. We're going to break down his journey. We're going to talk about what he does, how you can apply it in your local market, and I know you can get some results. All right, so today we're really going to break down YouTube. We're going to talk about some video stuff. We're going to talk about kind of Noah's journey because it's an inspiring story. Here he is at 24 years old, and he's generated, gosh, Noah, what? Probably total of over $25 million in your first 2 years directly from YouTube. Yep. So this is going to be something that is going to be very practical. We're going to really try to break this down almost like a blueprint of exactly what to do on YouTube for you, so you can follow along, learn from some of maybe the mistakes, also learn about some of the things. Noah, why don't you just tell them a little bit about kind of how you got here, how you got started in real estate and also in video.
Awesome. Yeah, I started out with you very early on I was doing video production for my church. You kind of approached me and was like, how can we do this at the brokerage level? Ended up sleeping on your couch for 4 days out of the week. The other 3 days studying at Florida State.
This was during the pandemic.
During the pandemic.
Yes.
Yep. And when we got kicked out of the dorms and the apartments and all that stuff, and really was the jumpstart for my real estate career. So not only was I learning under you, but I was learning under our three owners at the time, where all three of them had different characteristics that made them stand out in our market. And it really jump-started because I took ideas from each person and created my own videos. So like the three videos that I really focus on the most, learned from the four of you guys, on the early level. Since then, I started full-time in January of 2022. And this past year we did about 26 million. Hopefully we'll break the 30 million this year. Yeah. Hopefully about half of that business will come directly from YouTube. Yeah,
so this is one thing I want to kind of note a couple things here. Number one is that, things you may be looking, sometimes we can look and we can see Noah's, you don't realize Noah started and spent a couple of years at $15 an hour as an intern learning the business. So it wasn't like he just jump started. He had a plan of action. He understood what he liked and didn't like. He did a great job, not just with me, but of other folks that were top producing agents, of saying, hey, how can I give you some value through video in exchange for some question and answer time? You want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, and I would say that's kind of the other thing on that is, 26 million is awesome, but we're also blessed to live in a place where our average price point is higher than most.
Sure.
So that was about 26 transactions last year. So 26, so my average price point was about $1 million.
Yeah.
And that's serving the Destin, 38, and Panama City Beach market. Right. So wide array of different inventory there. But basically what I did early on as an intern, as soon as I got my license, I wanted to find where there were gaps in the market and how I can fill that. So during the pandemic, everybody was focused on, high-end $5 million properties, and they didn't have time for the $2 million buyers, which is crazy. I know. It's a totally different market than it is now. But then I just found top producers that needed what I could offer them. And in addition, help them with video production on the side. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I give and I take value, and it goes both ways. Right. And so it was a great relationship. And then from there, I was also learning how to talk to high net worth individuals, to where I also figured out what was the information that people needed to know before they make an educated decision, and how do I, put that in a box and present it to them before they even get here. Yeah. And that way, our average transaction time when someone calls me, we meet up in person. Basically, when we meet up in person to they're under contract, I think when I did the math, it was about 17 days. This past 2 weeks, it was 3 days for two clients and totaling $1 million total. So it's super cool to kind of package that stuff up, but I only got that experience from, the 2 years when I was learning underneath people. Yeah,
well, and I will say this too, that one of the things that I would say is I'm going to use my perspective, because obviously part of the reason why my YouTube's done so well is because of the videography and because of having you doing those things in a lot of cases. So I would just encourage you, look, if you're wondering how do I get started with this and you aren't sure if you have the budget, go hire the best as soon as you can. But we started bootlegging in this thing. I mean, literally, we were figuring this out. You don't have to do that. You can figure this out through some of that. You can reach out to either one of us. We'll be glad to share with you some of the things we did. But if you're wondering as an agent, what can I do? Find somebody that maybe is in your church, or maybe somebody that is in a local community college or a high school that loves videos. Find someone that's maybe a little younger that maybe wants to go into real estate. That group, Noah's age group, a lot of them have started. I mean, they've just been shooting content for social media on their own. They've got a little bit, probably an advancement than a lot of agents do. So I would just encourage you, if you aren't sure, find somebody, but make it where it's a mutually beneficial thing. Now, I will say this, make sure that if you're a guy and you hire a guy, that you guard your daughters.
Well, yeah, to be fair, I met your daughter first. And
I know.
From there, I think that was even a cool relationship part of like when I advise people on videographers is like, I'll be honest with you. You know, if your hair is out of place, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where like my videographers, I trust them enough to where they will critique me in the moment.
Exactly
so
right.
after the fact,
Yeah.
you know, and so that's probably one of the biggest tips when it comes down to finding a videographer.
Yeah.
And so luckily we had each other, so that when it was time for me to find a videographer, I had somebody that I knew I could not only, you know, get critiqued on and in the moment, you know, constructive criticism, but also someone to just have fun with. Because at the end of the day, this video stuff it's not necessarily the most fun stuff. With all the 20 takes that nobody sees, but having the person that's patient and willing to correct you in the moment to make sure it's your true personality that acts as a filter for everything else. And that way you're just doing genuine content too.
Yeah. And just so those of you that may not know, Noah is now my son-in-law as of about a month ago. And so so it's been great. This relationship has grown obviously through video, through obviously the relationship as a family now. So we're going to share some specific things you can do right now. Noah, let's talk about kind of what does it look like for you? And I want to drift back also. I mean, when you're talking about, y'all were on your honeymoon a month ago. You come back on that Monday. I want people to get an idea of what's possible. Now, this happens over time, but what happened on the Monday when you got back?
I think it's one of those things where, you know, during the honeymoon it was great because I still had my Verizon connection. So no matter where I went, I still had connection. Even though, you know, my phone was hidden and it wasn't working. But it was to the point where people were calling me probably once a day with new leads. And then I got back that Monday and it was like as soon as I got back, it was like 5 leads in one day. And it's one of those things where it's great because, you know, a pillar of my business is inbound calls. You know, the other 50% of my business comes from referrals and doing the basics of real estate. So everybody needs to still do all of that. Because this is the fancy stuff. You know, this is the fancy stuff that is not easy to break into. And it's definitely not cheap. So you still have to do everything else. But, you know, as soon as we got back, it was 5 leads. Since then, we've closed 2 of them, both for around $500,000 each. And it's just been one of the coolest things. Like last night around 7, I got a call in the gym. This guy's like, hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. I want to buy real estate right now. I was like, all right. You know, and that's the other thing about, you know, these leads is much like Zillow, they come whenever. They come at the convenience of whenever the consumer is watching it. And so I love it. You know, like I'll get a call at 6 a.m. from somebody in different time zones and even last night. And so the lead flow is very intentional as well. So the people that are calling me, they're ready to go. And I would say this too. That was the thing is these are organic. You're not spending money on ads. So listen, if you're buying leads or anything you're doing to generate leads is going to cost money. If it's direct mail, you know, and you're farming, it's going to cost money. If you're buying leads, if you're doing Zillow, whatever you're doing. So it's just, you have to understand that yes, there is an expense to this, but in reality, it's the expense that keeps on paying longer term because these videos just compound over time. We were talking about this as well, and then we're going to get specifically into the strategies of exactly what you're doing. But one of the things that's interesting is it has begun to build over time. You know, when I was started in the business, it was just on the phones all day. And like you said, it's inbound now, a lot of these calls. So what does that look like? Because prospecting, you know, when anybody I'm coaching, anybody I'm talking to, I'm talking about how much time are you spending on the phone? How much time are you spending where you're building relationships? You want to talk about like the watch time and things that you watch on that? And so, I mean, that's probably the most valuable metric for me because, you know, I can daily track my activities and how long it takes for me to prospect a day. So let's say I'm prospecting 2 to 3 hours a day, whether that's calls, emails, Instagram DMs, whatever it may be. But right now, with it being spring break, a little bit slower spring break, we hit about 13 hours watch time a day. Last summer, we hit about 17 and a half hours. So the goal right now is how do we build that to 24 hours a day, to where that every day that I work, I'm working an extra day. And there, you know, there's a lot of influencers right now that are like, how do you manipulate time? And I can't think of a better way right now than organic content and creating content that people actually care about and are searching for.
I've kind of thought of it this way. It's like it's marketing at the speed of light. I mean, in reality, because here you are basically 2 years into this journey. You know, I'm just use mine example. I'm 5 years in of the consistency of doing those. And the other thing is as you do more, you begin to understand that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But you know, once you get to that point, and it's coming. I mean, it's coming. I mean, like for me, it's right now, it's running almost 6. Every second we're sitting here right now, 6 seconds of people are watching videos. So it's literally like I'm marketing at 6x the number and the regular speed of life. So once you get to that point, now you've got something that's working for you, which YouTube has. I mean, there's nothing better for it. So let's get into some specifics there on kind of like, how do you think about your content? What is it that you see the best results with? What's some frameworks that people can model after also? Maybe we'll get into that as well.
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, I always watched everybody else is doing listing tours. And, you know, really spent a lot of time honing in exactly what makes a listing tour great. From there, we do community videos and then infrastructure updates. And so that order was kind of what I thought was going to be the success pattern going forward. And now it's kind of flipped on its head to where the infrastructure updates, now everybody is kind of trending towards like covering the airports, you know, stuff like we talked about, covering new developments, just because it's that important. And I think there was a gap in the market for a while where nobody was talking about it. And, you know, in our area, the joke I always make is like 45 minutes away is our airport. So when I go to pick somebody up, if I don't know what that pile of dirt's going to be, stupid or not, you know, it's my job to know it, and it can kill my credibility from the very jump. And that's also like our value point as an agent. Like we need to know these things. We need to know how it impacts that value until it happens. And so infrastructure updates are my bread and butter. It's also the easiest thing for me to make. Because the flow of that will be intro and outro on camera right here, typically in your living room. That's where I'll shoot it. The rest is voiceover with drone shots. So I use my $800 drone, my DJI Mini 3 Pro, in case anybody wants one. Easiest thing to fly. You learn how to fly in 30 minutes and you're ready to go. And so basically what I do is, you know, scripting is probably the hardest part. You know, go on the county's website, go through where they're doing meetings. Often you get transcripts of everything that just gets in development order, all that stuff. I mean, that's stuff I nerd out. Not everybody's going to love that stuff. But it creates the most amount of conversations. Because at the end of the day, I want to create content that creates conversations. Because if I'm just creating content, just create content and just put it out there, I don't care about it, nobody else is going to care about it. And then from there, community overviews. You know, we have a very heavy investment property and secondary market in the 30A market. So a lot of people that want to invest here don't live here. And so how do we educate consumers on these different communities? So by the time they get here, they're like, hey, we love this one. And so that's kind of been the fun thing is like, if I get a new lead, it's like, hey, watch these 3 videos and let me know which one you like best. And by the time they come here, they're like, we watched this video, let's look at listings. And for me, that turns, you know, 4 days into 2 concise days. To where now it's like, it got to a point where when I show people property, if they're here for a week, we'll spend an hour or 2 a day. It doesn't take me the entire day. I can keep my consistent schedule. And the thing that's probably performing, not necessarily the worst, but just doesn't get the same amount of watch time, are my listing videos. And you know, part of the reason we offer that to sellers is because nobody else is doing that. And again, a lot of our people are out of state, out of town. So how do we convey a property and the value that it can give to a consumer's life? Through video. And so instead of saying like, hey, this is a kitchen, this is a bathroom, like when I lived in my 1-bedroom apartment, I had all that. It's not gonna make somebody spend $1 million. But that extra flex space where you can build bunks and it adds, you know, beds to heads, and that, you know, performs better on your rental property. That's what a lot of people care about. And it also got to a point where now we expanded into builder interviews. So not only were we covering specific listings, but if I can find the builder that has a specific product, or even better if they built that listing, just the intentionality of having the person that built it with their bare hands talk about the product itself. Like we created a 16-minute video and the average watch time is about 11 minutes. And it's just interesting you know, at that point. And then the newest video that we kind of just rolled out recently is, okay, we're interviewing builders, but now we're also interviewing property management companies. Because there's nobody that has the true and raw data. Like I can make it up. You know, I could say, hey, things are down right now. I don't know. I don't spend every day doing it. But that's been kind of a new sector that we're kind of exploring.
I will say this, and I want to kind of just highlight this for people where they can kind of see this, because I've watched you do the coastal market, and now with the expansion, even like in the Freeport market where you've done some of those, that's been an amazing, you know, I mean, it seems like it hasn't taken as long to really grab a foothold there. Talk about what the reason was behind that, what the thought process was, why these builder neighborhoods specifically make so much sense.
I think for me, just being passionate about new construction, I mean, I love seeing a community turn from trees, you know, and unfortunately getting cut down, piles of dirt, and then platted into a point where it's completely built. Like these master plan communities of 800 home sites, the gap of information from consumer to developer is so wide that when a developer and a consumer try to meet, it's hard to meet in person, or it's hard to meet in the middle. So that is why, you know, a lot of times where people necessarily don't think they need an agent for new construction, I bridge that gap. And I think that's where all the value and that's where a lot of money is in real estate, is bridging gaps. And so like Freeport, like the 30A market, we hear a lot of, hey, we don't have to buy, we don't have to sell, but we want to. Freeport is, we need to be here.
It's primary residence.
Primary residences, compared to a secondary investment property market like 30A. So they're a lot more intentional. They're a lot more specific, which I think is better when it comes down to finding the right inventory. Instead of saying like, hey, I have $1 million, find me something. It's like, okay. And then also, there's nobody else doing it. And so the race for digital real estate right now, I think is huge, especially on YouTube. Everybody there is on Facebook. Everybody's there is on Instagram. But the consumers and the people that are being brought into one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Florida, I mean, we're seeing now entrepreneurs. We're seeing people move their businesses there. We're seeing more investors come to that market. And so a lot of those people are intentionally searching through YouTube.
Yeah. And a lot of this too is when you're starting these, you call them infrastructure updates. In case you're wondering what that is that's basically when people start moving dirt, people wonder what that is. So you're highlighting and talking about this will be a X number of subdivision. You want to talk a little bit about what those exactly are, because it's like it leads to then the community overview. And as you're doing these things, you're first to market on this, which means that you're going to be first in search, which as you continue to do these layers in that you're doing, it's hard for somebody to catch up with you. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I put it in ChatGPT and kind of like, I don't like to use ChatGPT for my scripts because I want to sound how I sound. Like I don't say elegant, I don't say any of these fancy words. But the other thing for me is I wanted to figure out how to give ChatGPT enough information to kind of generate scripts for me, like bullet point wise, so I can create content in my own voice. But the thing it said, it was like Noah Escobar's style is informational and concise. And I like that. I could get better on the storytelling side, but there's a lot of people that want information fast and nobody else is giving that information. So the infrastructure updates for me has been, again, the number one conversation starter, and it's led to people looking at me as the resource and kind of the news center. So a lot of the time we do that, and the reason we start a lot of conversations is the shock factor. Like a lot of people didn't know 793 home sites were coming to Freeport. Right. It's a little bit far out from the main central area. And so I tell locals that, and like, we had no idea. And so like that shock factor is like, how do we add value up front and from an emotional standpoint, give people information. And I think that is the biggest thing that is probably lacking in our local market here. It's like, there's people walking in slow motion. There's fast-paced listing videos of luxury homes, but not every consumer, can get emotionally attached to that to make an educated decision. And I think this is a good point. Is you got to be yourself. I mean, that's the thing is someone can come in with that type of video, and if it's who they are, it will naturally attract the ideal client for them. The other thing is like you were talking about, I don't want to skip over what we said. You're saying that the average time period from when they reach out to you and show up in town to getting them under contract is 17 days. I mean, online leads, we're nurturing, we're seeing 17, 18 months on an average time period right now before they actually buy. And so this is really, you're catching them at the bottom of the funnel. And in reality, one of the things that you and I've talked about is it's doing a lot of the natural sifting out of who's your ideal client. But you're nurturing them before you even knowing it. And I would almost say, we've talked about social media being this way, but I believe YouTube is your CRM. For sure.
And even when you don't know what's going on.
I have a CRM.
Yeah, I know. And which is, we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about
that.
I know.
But basically, because that's amazing, to think about it. But so let's talk a little bit about now, the person who's out there is just thinking about getting started. How would you suggest they get started in video? And what would you start, now knowing what you know now, and if you were starting over, how would you start?
I think a lot of it comes down to the why. Because I think a lot of people say, hey, do video. And nobody really understands why. And so for like me, if I can get to that 24 hours a day watch point to where I can go on my honeymoon and not feel guilty. If I need to take a day off when we have kids to like go to sports games, or if they're sick, hang out with them for the day, that's my goal. And so it's like, how do we passively prospect to where the business doesn't just operate when I'm in it? And at the end of the day, like real estate, I don't want it to be my life. I want it to be what I do. I don't want that to be why I'm on this earth. And so I think this allows me to focus a lot more on content that will constantly prospect for me, compared to like a one and done mailer, compared to cold calls, to where when I'm done working, the business stops bringing in income. And then so for me, the other point is like, I wanted to do this to also build a team, so one day that I can be, I hate to say like even a face of a team, but get it to a point where I can then, give leads to people in these different markets. So starting off with your why, because if you're just doing it just to do it and you want the business, it's not going to work out. Because it took 7 months for me to get my first YouTube lead. And that was, that was probably $30,000 out of pocket by 7 months in. And I'm kind of like, that's a salary, $30,000 is a salary. And that's the other thing, like when I do video production, I'd say probably about 60% I'm doing it myself. And right now, just because our market is, spring break, summer, very heavy in terms of transaction numbers. I focused like in March, I did 8 videos that I pushed out. So my goal is to get as much traction, as much information out there as possible during this season, compared to something like December, where I can slow down to like 1 a week. But the biggest thing is, how do we take the content that we're pushing out and get first in line?
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. Like my why of why I sell real estate is obviously we want it to passively prospect. But I'm a 24-year-old guy competing with people who have been doing this for 30 years with hundreds of millions of dollars under their belt. But if I can get in the room before they can get in there, because once people get down to 30A, everybody and their mom's a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just the harsh reality. But if I can capture people before they get here, they want to work with me.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing is I think a lot of people think they're really good agents. But nobody knows they're amazing agents, because they can't get that first foot in the door.
Right.
And I think YouTube and video is the only way we can do that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the exciting thing is this thing just keeps building. As you continue to do that, as you expand into these markets, I think that would be what I would just encourage people is hey, just get started. And you don't have to do the budget like Noah did. Noah was all in because he knew and he believed and he'd seen it. And so if you're looking for those things to wonder about that, some of the things that Noah took 7 months to know, he shared with you already the framework. He had to figure this framework out. So you're going to start a little bit ahead of him. The other thing is I would just encourage you, find wherever it is that you can have a pace where you can have peace. We talk about that so much, but I mean, literally like for you, it was starting out, it was one every 2 weeks, right? Yeah. And now you're saying you put out 2 a week last month. So this will build over time. Begin to get those first wins and start playing with some house money. The other thing is utilize the videos that you're doing for your existing listings, because that's a great place to start, because not only is it marketing for that listing, but now it becomes your resume on the next listing.
For sure.
And now people begin to see the type of things you're doing, and it leads to additional opportunities there. So as we kind of wrap this up, and listen, down below, if you're wanting this, I'll have down below all of some of the tools that Noah's mentioned, some of those things down in the description. Also, I would highly encourage you, go and follow Noah's channel. He's testing these things. A lot of it is data. You want to talk about that, figuring this thing out for everybody's different, but really it's having the data. You want to talk a little bit about how you kind of watch what's performing and how you adjust to that?
The number one thing I look at is hours of watch time. Because if I can go from there, I can see from there what are actually people watching the full amount of.
Right.
And I never expect someone to watch 100% of my video.
Right.
But if I can get them to 50 to 80% all day long. We did one with a property management company talking about what's currently going on in Q1 of this year and what people can kind of look forward to during summer. And I think it's about 17 minutes, and it has about 8 minutes of average watch time across 200 views. And for me, that's pretty sick, because then people are the average watch time of 8 minutes. That means people are intentionally watching it.
Right.
And so that way, if they have questions or anything like that, they know to contact me.
Yeah.
And so that's the number one thing I look at. Number of subscribers don't really matter. As we both know, you have one video that can really pop off. I did one on Latitude Margaritaville, 55 plus community, over 2,000 homes so far. Going to be bigger than the Villages. And as soon as one person shares that in a Facebook group, it's done. One of those videos right now has 6,200 views, just because people are craving the information.
Right.
I would say the biggest thing is my budget won't make sense for a lot of people, but also this is a priority in my business.
Yeah.
It's either this or direct mail, or it's or right now until it becomes until my business generates enough money to where I can start doing the YouTube and direct mail and these different things. But my biggest tip is, yes, get started, but also have fun with it, because if this isn't fun to you, people are gonna be able to see that on camera.
Yeah.
And then find people that also want to do it and find ways to keep each other accountable.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what we do together.
No, there's no doubt. And I would say that. And look, those are things that, obviously reach out to us. If we can give you some tips, that's what we do, and we'd love to do it. I would just encourage you, follow Noah's channel. Find some other people maybe that are on YouTube that you like. And one last point I want to make is you mentioned that, a video can get 200 views and you can see the watch time. This is not something where you only need one of the right viewers. And I would absolutely, you're a perfect example. I think the first one you closed, that video had 400 views and it was $1 million+ sale.
Yeah.
And so don't get so caught up in a lot of times we get caught up in the vanity metrics of views and of subscribers. In reality, it's depth of the opportunity to build that relationship. Yep. So, you're how many subscribers as we talk now, roughly? Under 1,500, right?
Yeah, 1,460 something.
Yeah. So, we're under 1,500 subscribers, and in less than 2 years with under 1,500 subscribers, it's generated over $25 million worth of directly proportional sales. We don't, and I know there's a lot of the listings that you've had that weren't necessarily didn't come through YouTube, but it's because of the marketing. Yeah. So I just want to encourage you, don't get overwhelmed by everything. Just if it's something that you would enjoy, it's something that I can tell you, I don't know of anything you can do better for your business for the long term right now than being on YouTube and being searchable. Then I don't know of anything else you can do. Yeah. So I would just encourage you, check out Noah's channel, find some other people that are doing this well, get actively involved, and I promise that you're going to be able to do this. Last thing we'll do is I think you've got an outline of some of the criteria that people do. We'll have the link down in the comment or down in the description down below on YouTube where you can get a copy of those things. Obviously, if you got a referral coming this way, Northwest Florida, what's the best way for them to catch up with you?
Hopefully, I mean, we'll put my email down in the show notes below, but connect with me, shoot me a text, give me a call. Referrals are probably about 25% of my business.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing, like not only is YouTube great CRM for prospective buyers and clients, but for other agents to know that you're working.
Yeah.
Because there's times where I go in different feeder markets and I need somebody for Atlanta. I don't know who to call.
Yeah.
And there's times where I don't have that connection already. There's nothing better than it's kind of like getting nose to nose with people. It's kind of like an open house, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we get in front of people more than anybody else? And I think it's video production.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right. Hope this has been helpful. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.